The Palace of Versailles owes its existence to jealousy. The Palace of Versailles is the most famous palace in France, renowned for its grandeur, making it a masterpiece of French architecture and the residence of 3 generations of French monarchs. Surprisingly, the original Palace of Versailles was very modest, almost devoid of magnificence. However, it was later extensively expanded and decorated, becoming the most beautiful palace in France at the time. How did this happen? The story begins in the year 1624. At that time, King Louis XIII of France purchased a 117-acre area of forests, wasteland, and marshes for 10,000 livres, where he built a 2-story red brick building, which was the prototype of the Palace of Versailles. The original Palace of Versailles had only 26 rooms, with the ground floor serving as a storage room and an armory, while the second floor housed the king and his entourage. Later, when Louis's son, Louis XIV, ascended to the throne, a sudden event occurred that caused a dramatic change in the status of the Palace of Versailles. When Louis XIV was 23 years old, Nicolas Fouquet, the French Minister of Finance and the wealthiest man in France, invited the young king to a ball at his own home. Fouquet had already risen to prominence during Louis's reign and reached the pinnacle of his career during Louis's reign. At that time, the people of Paris, discontent with the royal family's plundering, attacked the windows of Cardinal Mazarin's residence with stones, triggering a 5-year-long revolt. Fouquet staunchly supported Mazarin and the king, earning favor from the royal family and eventually being promoted to Minister of Finance. After his promotion, Fouquet engaged in relentless financial speculation, amassing a considerable fortune. He lavishly decorated his home, foolishly thinking he would not lose face in front of the king. However, this action brought him disaster. During the ball that night at Fouquet's home, Louis XIV arrived, and Fouquet personally attended to him. As Louis XIV looked at the magnificent buildings, his expression darkened, and he sarcastically remarked, "Your house is quite nice." Fouquet, oblivious to the king's demeanor, responded, "It's not bad. I haven't done much decoration." Hearing this, the king became even more displeased. Subsequently, Fouquet showed the king around his home. Louis XIV noticed the abundance of fountains and sarcastically remarked, "You have a lot of fountains in your house." Fouquet still did not realize anything was wrong and continued to boast, "My house has a total of 250 fountains, Your Majesty." That night, Louis's heart was filled with flames of jealousy. He was so angry that his hands and feet trembled, and he left early without dancing. Several weeks later, Fouquet was suddenly arrested on charges of embezzlement. The king subjected him to 3 years of interrogation, ultimately sentencing him to life imprisonment and confiscating all of Fouquet's property, which went into the king's pockets. Despite his jealousy, Louis XIV was still amazed by the splendor of Fouquet's home. He felt that as a king, his palace should not be inferior to that of a minister. Therefore, he summoned the architects Lavaux and Lanier, who had built Fouquet's mansion, and ordered them to construct a brand new palace. After careful consideration, the site for the new palace was chosen to be Versailles. Louis XIV then purchased an additional 6.7 square kilometers of land and ambitiously set out to build a palace that would outshine all others. By the year 1710, the Palace of Versailles was finally completed, immediately becoming the most magnificent and luxurious palace in Europe. At its peak, it housed as many as 36,000 people. Interestingly, after the completion of the Palace of Versailles, its structure and style were extremely similar to Fouquet's home, because the architects and engineers were the same individuals. Subsequently, Louis XV and Louis XV further expanded the Palace of Versailles, making it even more magnificent and elegant. Unfortunately, France later experienced a tumultuous bourgeois revolution, during which many items in the Palace of Versailles were looted by the people, while the remaining items were transferred to the Louvre. It was not until the year 1833 that the king ordered the restoration of this palace. Since then, the Palace of Versailles has remained preserved as a historical museum to this day.